What's the dumbest thing you've ever witnessed someone get offended by? I had a stranger get upset because I covered my ears when emergency vehicles went by. He said I was showing disrespect or something. Fuck that, those sirens are loud. The sirens aren't there to be respected, it's just to make sure traffic keeps out of their way. I used to live with a black guy from the UK. One night we went out to a local bar and started talking to some random people. A random white woman got upset I called my roommate black during a discussion about something. The correct term is African American. According to her, even the Brits are African American. It seems to me that the only people who get offended by saying black instead of African American are white people. Don't call me white. I'm a European American. Fat girls getting offended by skinny girls because they are skinny. You say you are happy with your size, but your constant need to justify it and put others down says otherwise. They aren't offended, they just hate the truth. Fat is unattractive. It used to be back in the day that when someone was overweight, that was a sign of affluence. Back when everyone was working their balls off, and just scraping by someone who could afford more food than they actually needed was attractive. It was a sign of wealth. Today, being overweight is a sign of sloth and diabetes. This is just the most backward thing in the world to me. Preaching, you can't judge us because of our bodies, while at the same time saying things like, real women have curves, and only dogs like sticks. It seems like groups that have felt oppressed always have to make up for it by going too far in the opposite direction. My friend's sister attempted to ban me from their house because I was too skinny, and she felt bad about herself. I can't do anything about my weight as much as she felt like she couldn't do anything about hers. When I did go over to her house, her sister would say things like, "Do you want a brownie? Oh no, probably not, you don't eat, do you?" Years ago, a woman came into my work and bought a black stove. The guys take the box up there to her, and she flips the fuck out because the box said, Negro on it. Everyone tried explaining to her that it was the Spanish word for black, but she left there saying we were all racists. Similarly, I've gotten dirty looks for ordering a Negra Modelo at restaurant. I don't care though, because it's delicious. Somebody once complained at my restaurant that their Swiss cheese didn't have enough holes in it. Why would you complain that you were getting more cheese than you were supposed to? The holes are always most delicious. I've met people who have been offended by me not allowing them to pat a dog that has syringomyelia, neurological spinal disorder, causes immense pain if touched during episodes. I explained to them that this dog, a Cavalier, can get aggressive and snappy if he has an episode, and it's not something that we can detect easily. They told me that I shouldn't be walking an aggressive dog, as it may bite someone who wants to pat it. Well, people shouldn't try to pat dogs before asking if it is okay. Same rule as with people, in my opinion. I don't randomly pat pregnant women's bellies, for example. I used to frequent a drive-thru near my job on my lunch breaks. After they repeated my order and told me to pull forward, I always said, "Thanks," before I drove to the window. One day, the manager comes to the window and says, "Hey, I'm gonna tell you something. Every time you come here and you say thanks, it just sounds really rude. Thanks is something you say with your buddies. Here you say thank you because you just sound really rude." Have not been back there since, and I immediately reported him to corporate when I got home. Well, thanks for telling me not to say that. Schools suspending, or worse, a child for chewing a Pop-Tart into the shape of a handgun. Or the deaf kid named Hunter who was suspended because his sign language form of Hunter looked like a gun. Or the one where a kid got suspended for bringing in a squirt gun he had forgot in his backpack after a birthday party on the weekend. As a server, I once ran food out to a table with a young, less than 6 months old baby, dressed in generic, brown baby clothing. I put the plates down in order, and when I got to the baby, I asked the mother, "Did she get anything?" She glares at me with one of the most pissed-off faces I've ever seen and snarls, "Keys. Hey boy." So I did the most logical thing I could think of, shrugged, said, "Whoops," and left. All babies just look like potatoes to me. As a newer father, all babies are born looking like potatoes. I pissed off a nurse in the delivery room. Nurse, he looks like you. Me, he looks like a potato. Nurse wraps him in that reflective space-looking material. Me, now he looks like a baked potato. Nurse gives me a dirty look. I have a friend with her first baby that is 6 months old. Every single piece of clothing this kid has is a neutral color. No pink or blue. Just last week she posted big rant on Facebook about people constantly getting her child's gender wrong. People need to pay better attention. It's very clear that Lexi is a girl. Of course, all of her friends made comments backing her up and not pointing out no one can tell the gender of a 6 months old without normal cues. One trick I learned for times like this, if you even care if it's a boy or girl in the first place, is to look at the baby and say, "And what's your name?" The parents should tell you, and then assuming it has a normal name, you should have your answer. And if it's a unisex name, then hopefully they will preface their answer with, "Her name is." If they don't, then you're fucked. I was once talking about how I visited the Grand Tetons, and talked a little about the geology since I found it very interesting. One of the people I was eating lunch with was very offended I suggested something might have happened 2 million years ago. I work with a guy who doesn't believe that dinosaurs ever existed, and that all the fossils that have ever been discovered are a hoax by archaeologists. This person is an adult, seemingly, human with a college education. We just don't talk about dinosaurs when he's around. Here is an excerpt from today's edition of Pissing Off Robbie with Dinosaurs. Me: "Hey Robbie, who were those guys running around burying fake dinosaur bones again?" Robbie: "Fucking archaeologists, man. It's a goddamn conspiracy. The government pays them by the pound for the fossils they find, so every year they make them a little heavier and blame it on carbon dating. I couldn't make this shit up if I tried." My Asian friend was offended that her sister called me black. So I have to be the one who asks, "Are you black?" "Yeah." At a restaurant years ago, and this guy ordered a soup. He pulled a bay leaf out of the soup and went freaking mental. "There's a leaf in my soup," and was convinced it was off the tree outside. Manager continued to explain it's a bay leaf, an ingredient for flavor, and this guy wasn't having it. Since then, any time my wife cooks a soup, we treat the leaf like the bean in a cake, and whoever finds it gets free reign over being super grumpy, as long as it's in a jest. When my wife was serving at a restaurant, one of her coworkers got yelled at for saying, "Sir," to a black guy. He claimed that, "sir," was a racial epithet. I'm definitely not one of those people who think that most black folks use racism to their advantage, but I have never heard of "sir" as an epithet, and he did get a free meal out of it. I had a lady very offended because I would not let her hold my few days old baby. This was a complete stranger at a grocery store. I learned to say to people, "Ha ha, I'm a first-time parent, and I don't even let my own parents hold her, ha ha," seemed to do the trick without having to say, "You, perfect stranger, can hold my most precious, beloved and delicate possession when pigs fly." I once saw a man hold a door open for a woman that was walking through. She completely flipped and started calling him a disgusting, sexist pig. She asked him if he would have held the door open if she was a man, and stated that she, and all women, should be treated the same as men. The guy just looked at her for a few seconds and walked away shaking his head. I would have just closed the door on her. I'm female, I'll hold the door open for anyone walking behind me, or if I see you're carrying things and are ahead of me, I'll walk faster, get ahead and hold the door open for you. Gender has nothing to do with it, it's just being polite. This is a true story. My dad was at work and witnessed a guy hold a door for a woman, just to be polite. He smiled at her and waited. As she got to the door, she said, "Why did you hold the door? 'Cause I'm a woman and I can't myself." To which the guy replied, No, I just, He didn't really know what to say and fumbled out a weird apology. The woman just made more snide comments and walked through the door and went on her way. My dad and him had a laugh about it, wondered why someone would be so strange and thought nothing more of it. The next day this guy gets called into his manager's office and is told he has been accused of being sexist and harassment in the workplace. This guy had to go on a 2-day course on dignity and diversity in the workplace, because he held a bloody door open for some ungrateful bint. I guess I offended someone at my work because I insulted their intelligence. I run audio at conferences and the presenter kept turning away from his microphone. In the middle of his presentation he asks me what's wrong with the mic. I tell him there's nothing wrong with it, just be sure you speak into it. Then he got on my after saying, "Don't tell me how to do my job. Then do your job right and I won't have to." A friend of mine got all pissy when I told him that my mother had to put down my sick, dying pet cat. Apparently, because I have no right to decide the death of another animal, I shouldn't make an imminent death less painful. Also, I didn't even know that my mother was putting the cat down until I came home from school and heard it from her. Someone at my school who lived on a farm was upset one day that a farm laborer had found an injured rabbit and killed it with a spade. She was horrified that he would do such a thing and claimed that he had no right to take another animal's life. Someone pointed out to her that she was a hypocrite because she went fox hunting, and she shook her head and said, "No, that's different." I had a drama teacher get mad at me for pretending to be a werewolf in a skit. She claimed it was disrespectful of transgenders, which I suppose means that transgenders are werewolves to her. What's the dumbest thing you've ever witnessed someone get offended by? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.